Well, first, our provisional estimates from the Ghana Statistical Service shows that Ghana's economy expanded by 3.1% in 2022, 0.6% lower than 3.7% forecast by the government. Now, this is below government's average gross domestic product growth rate of 5.0% pre-COVID-19. It met most analysts' forecasts as the African Development Bank in January 2023 had projected that Ghana's economy would grow by 3.6%. Now, the service sector led growth, followed by agriculture and industry, which recorded a growth rate of 0.9%. Here's government statistician Professor Samuel Kobnenim addressing the media a while ago.
The value of the economy in 2021 was 174 billion relative to 179.9 billion from an all-inclusive perspective, taking into consideration all the 3 sectors and all the 22 subsectors. The value of the economy when you discount for the effect of oil in 2021 stood at 162.9 billion relative to 169.1 billion in 2022. And when you discount for the effect of gold in 2021, the value of the economy was 168.6 million relative to 172.1 million for 2022. From a constant perspective, we estimate the growth rate for the economy between 2021 and 2022. In 2021, the economy grew by 5.1%. That is between 2020 and 2021, Ghana's economy saw a growth rate of 5.1%. This growth rate dipped by 2.0 percentage points for the period 2021 to 2022. For the period 2021 to 2022, comparing the values of the economy, which stood at 174.6 billion and 179.9 billion, the economy grew by 3.1% between the period 2021 and 2022. From a non-oil perspective, the economy grew by 3.8%, which also indicates a slowdown of about 2.8 percentage points, as the economy grew by 6.6% between 2020 and 2021, and now saw a growth rate of 3.8% between 2021 and 2022. From a non-gold perspective, we see a much harder impact on the economy. So if you discount for the effect of the economy, in 2021, the economy grew by 7.1% from a non-gold perspective. That is, if you take away the effect of gold, the economy grew by 7.1% in the period 2020 and 2021. But between the period 2021 and 2022, we saw a much harder impact on the economy, where the economy grew by 2.1% between 2021 and 2022.
All right, JoyNews' data analyst Isaac Kofieje has been looking through the statistics released by the Ghana Statistical Service. He's here to give us a breakdown. And so we know that the services sector led growth, followed by agric and then industry. Tell us a bit more about what you're reading from the Statistical Services release.
Right, so I'm looking at the trend analysis currently, and this is the growth rate after a very pacey, growth recorded in 2021. We were all expecting the economy to be on a very good trajectory after a growth rate of 0.5% in 2022. In 2021, we recorded 5.1%. That was very significant, looking at where we left off in 2020. And then now we see some sort of a decline, and the economy heading south from the 5.1 to 3.1. So on the trajectory, you can see a decline from what we recorded in 2021 to just 3.1% in 2022. I'm also looking at the sectoral, breakdown, and as of now, the GDP at basic price is around 571 billion Ghana cedis. If you convert to dollars, it would be around some $6 billion. And the services sector is still, accounting for one of the biggest portion of this 571 billion GDP that we're talking about. It's around 44.9%, although it has declined from the share that they held in 2021. Agric is now around 20.9%. And the rest of the pie goes to the industrial sector, which is around 34.2%. I am also looking at GDP growth rate of about 8 countries that have still been released at the moment. And we have about 5 countries recording growth rates higher than that of Ghana. So Mauritius, for instance, has a growth rate of 8.7%, Rwanda 8.2%, Botswana 5.8%, Namibia 4.6%. So all these countries have recorded growth rates above that of Ghana. Now we see in West Africa, Ghana and Nigeria actually recorded the same growth rate, Ghana 3.1, Nigeria 3.1. However, we have about two countries actually recording growth rate below that of Ghana. That is Tunisia 2.4% and South Africa 2.0%.
All right, Isaac, thank you so much. That information helpful. Joining us to make more sense of the data released by the Ghana Statistical Service is economist and director at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Peter Quartey. Good afternoon. Great to have you. So 2022 was quite a tough year. And so this level of growth expected, or am I just being modest?
Well, good afternoon to your discerning listeners and viewers. Yes, this is not what we expected, but it's certainly lower than what we should expect. But we knew given the challenges we went through in the last quarter of 2022, this is likely to happen. Because if you saw the exchange rate depreciation, you saw what was happening on the price build-up, as well as even fuel price increases, general cost of doing business, as well as the general uncertainty in the last quarter of 2022. This IMF program, debt exchange, generally there was higher uncertainty on the market, and therefore, as investors, as industry, they couldn't plan to invest as much as they could. Demand pressures were not as high as one would have expected. So that translated into the slower growth rates that we saw.
And industry took a big hit in 2022. We understand because of the challenges, but the figures are very disappointing, especially as the government was pursuing an industrialization agenda. Your thoughts?
Yes, the industrialization policies were there, but of course, as a business person, if you want to produce, if you want to market your product, you also have to take cognizance of what is happening on the market. If exchange rate was depreciating quite rapidly, if the interest rate were rising, if electricity, utility tariffs, fuel prices were going up, inflation, look at how rapidly inflation kept changing. So there were a lot of market uncertainty. And as an investor, despite all the policies that government was trying to put in place, this would affect your decision to invest, to produce. And even if you produce, demand for your product can also be affected, given the general economic conditions. So in my view, it is very much expected.
Any recovery in sight for industry, and how soon? How can we pick up quickly?
Yes, certainly the need for recovery is key. We would hopefully, if we're able to sign on to the IMF program, but that's not the main thing. It's necessary, but not the sufficient conditions. Getting onto an IMF program is not sufficient. Also doing the right things, investing in the right places and ensuring macro stability. I believe when there is stability, when the exchange rate is stable, when inflation is not increasing or increasing rapidly, when the market is stable, when fuel prices are stable or lower, when general cost of doing business is reasonable, investors will kick in and recovery is likely to come. I mean, we went through COVID and you saw how we recovered quickly from COVID. So once we put in the right places, I believe we'll bounce back.
And your thoughts on how Agric fared? I thought it was quite impressive looking at where we are coming from. And how can we maximize on the gains made in that sector?
Yes, Agric is being quite resilient. Even in times of COVID, we saw the growth in agriculture. Of course, the planting for food and jobs and other policies are helping, but there's a lot of room for improvement if we really want to maximize the gains from Agric. They need to ensure that there's much more irrigation instead of relying on rain-fed agriculture. They need to ensure that we mechanize. They need to ensure that we add value to agricultural products and also supporting the value chain. So it's not just producing. If you support them with inputs and there is a glut, the following year they will not invest. But if you support them through the value chain, production, marketing, storage, etc., I believe that will be a long-term solution to promoting the agricultural sector. It's been resilient, and I think we should do a bit more to ensure that that sector is really accelerated in terms of its growth outcomes.
And I want us to talk a bit about the services sector, which is leading growth right now. What are the advantages and disadvantages to us that the service sector is leading growth?
Well, the advantages, if you look at ICT, for instance, is growing quite well. You saw hotel, tourism. That is good. I mean, we are diversifying. So our advantage is that there's diversity. We are not relying on one sector, like Nigeria that relies quite significantly on oil. We are diversifying services, even manufacturing. But the disadvantage is that we are not investing in high value services. A lot of them goes into retail and other areas that do not provide sustainable jobs. So as we promote the services sector, we need to also invest in high value services as well as invest more in manufacturing. Otherwise, we promote more of services and we continue to import food that will not inure to our benefit. Let's note that agri employs a greater proportion of our labor force. Agri contributes significantly to our GDP. So we shouldn't promote services at the expense of manufacturing, at the expense of agriculture. Otherwise, we'll be import dependent, and that has repercussions on inflation, imported inflation. It has repercussions on exchange rates and many other things. And even employment. Once you import a lot, you are not creating jobs. And we have a teeming youth that requires jobs. So we need to really diversify and ensure that we create the necessary jobs that are required for our educated sector.
Okay, and I know there's a lot of excitement in the system following the progress we've made with securing an IMF deal, but how optimistic are you about recovery now that we've made some headway?
Yes, I am optimistic, but I say again, as I said, it's a necessary condition, but not sufficient. That is not the only thing. Once we do the right things, we sign on to the IMF program and do the right things, certainly we'll do better. There will be stability, we'll have confidence restored. Let's be guided that in 2017, 2018, we were under an IMF program and the economy thrived quite significantly. So for me, I'm very optimistic that if we sign on to the program and we are able to cut down our expenditure and make sure we get value for money in terms of spending, raise revenue, we are good to go. We'll restore stability, we'll restore the economy back on track for accelerated growth.
Well, so based on these figures, if you're to advise the government on the way forward in terms of policy, what would that be?
Macro stability is key, in my view. Aside from everything, we need macro stability. What we can do to ensure that there is exchange rate stability, so we don't over-rely on imports, but also promote the import substitution industries. What can we do to add value to our manufactured products? What can we do to add value to agricultural products so that we don't depend too much on import? At the moment, there is quite a lot going on with Bank of Ghana supporting the forex market with foreign exchange, as well as some of the things that are the Gold for Oil program, and everything that can be done within the remits of government to ensure exchange rate stability. That is great. What government can do to ensure inflation doesn't escalate. We don't record rapid inflation rates, but rather slower rate of inflation. That will be good. Then also when you come to cost of doing business itself, the high taxes, I mean, if you are introducing taxes, we should ensure that these taxes will bring in the needed revenue. We should do some background checks, research, impact analysis to ensure that we do not hurt critical sectors of the economy. Otherwise, we introduce too many taxes with the aim of raising revenue. We might not end up raising the revenue, but rather hurting critical sectors of the economy. So I believe all of this are key, but ensuring macro stability in terms of exchange rate, inflation, interest rates will go a long way to ensure that businesses are able to plan, they're able to produce and employ more people.
All right. I appreciate your insights and perspective, Professor Peter Quartey, economist, also director at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. Grateful for your time.